Hi everyone, welcome to this channel. In this first video that is going to be uploaded to this channel, let us discuss some of the words that are commonly misused by or wrongly used by people who write scientific articles, journal articles, or even on PowerPoint slides. The people keep on making these mistakes. Let us start with some pairs of words about which many people have a lot of confusion. Let us start with a pair of very commonly mistakenly used pair of words, few and a few. There is, though, like people use these two words interchangeably, there is a distinct difference in the meanings of these two words. A few means some, at least there is like some amount of whatever is being referred to, while few means almost zero or almost nil. Let us see it with some examples. Postnatal depression, a few simple questions. This is the title of a published journal article. So here what the author is trying to discuss is the author has identified some simple questions about postnatal depression. So that is why it is called a few simple questions. On the other hand, see this title. Alzheimer's disease drug development pipeline, few candidates, frequent failures. So here the author uses few, which means like there are many candidates. It is almost nil. The number of candidates that are in the Alzheimer's disease drug development pipeline is almost nil. So here the correct word is few. So this is the distinction. Few means almost none. A few means some number is there. On the other hand, please see the title of this article. It is basically a letter published recently in a journal. So the authors are commenting on another article that the journal recently published. The title is Psychological Impact of COVID-19 Lockdown, an online survey from India, few concerns. So what this means is like when they are talking about a few concerns, it actually means they don't have many concerns. So that is the wrong word that they have used here. It should have been a few concerns. They want to discuss some concerns. Now there is one more mistake here. Not a mistake actually, but it would have been better in the sense that there are two colons in this title. Psychological impact of COVID-19 lockdown colon and an online survey from India colon. So that is not a sign of a good title. We will have another presentation soon on how to write a good title. So we will go into more details of this in that particular video. Now, this is again very common mistake we see in the discussion section of various research articles. Our study has few limitations. Again, so they are boasting that our study has absolutely no limitations. Again, so the correct term here would have been a few limitations. Now, moving on to the next pair, its and its. So both of them both of them sound the same, but obviously there is a difference. It's actually means like belonging to it. Actually, whenever we usually like Jones, things like that, when we write, like we use the apostrophe s along with that noun. But in the case of it, that apostrophe is not there. Belonging to it is written as its. Well, this version with the apostrophe is actually a contracted form of it is. So, but people usually confuse between these two. So here are some examples of good and like wrong usage of these terms. It's time to revise the definition of status epilepticus. So here it is actually it is time. So that is a correct usage. Play and its role in the mental development of the child. So its role, the role of play. So here it is correct. Its role, there is no apostrophe because the correct form is without the apostrophe. MSMEs in India, its growth and prospects. So here we have a problem. So basically there are two mistakes here. The first one is like if they meant its, then they should not have used the apostrophe because now it reads it is growth. The other mistake is actually they are talking about MSMEs. So actually they should not have used it. They should have used there. So that is another mistake. Which and that, again very confusing for many authors. There is a very distinct difference between the meanings of these two words. So let us understand the difference between which and that using a very simple example. The books, comma, which have red covers, comma, are new. So what this sentence means is like all the books have red covers and all of them are new. So basically when you say which, that applies to whatever noun is there, the entire group, the all books it applies. Also another major difference here is like even if you remove this part between the two commas, that is technically called a parenthetical clause. Even if you delete that, the meaning does not change and the sentence is still correct. That is, the books are new. So you are saying the books are new, then you are giving some additional information that applies to the old books which have red covers. Okay, so that is how you use which. On the other hand, when you use that, the books that have red covers are new. So here basically there is no comma. First of all, it is a continuous sentence, and also you can see that all the books are not red. So what it says is some of the books are red and they are new. The books that have red covers are new. So some of the books, so it like unlike which applies to the whole group, that applies to like only some members of the group. So that is the difference. And also here there is no comma. So even if you remove this, suppose you remove that have red covers, delete that from here, that says the books are new. So which is wrong, because not all the books are new. So what that means is you cannot remove the portion that contains that, unlike that unlike the case which is there for which. Here is another example that makes the distinction between the two terms clear. So here is one version. In such situations, one should avoid antipsychotics which are diabetogenic. So what this sentence means is all antipsychotics are diabetogenic. So in such situations, we should avoid all antipsychotics. If you look at the alternate version, in such situations, one should avoid antipsychotics that are diabetogenic. So what this sentence means is like some of the antipsychotics are diabetogenic, so you should avoid them in this particular situation. So this is the correct version actually. So basically that is what I am saying, like you have to use the correct version, which is where you should use which or that. If you make a mistake there, the reader may get the wrong message. Now see this example. It is the title of an article published in a medicine website. Can doctor be held liable for not rendering a service or facility, which is not available in the hospital? So what is your opinion about the use of this which here, whether it is correct or not? If you look at the portion before the comma, can doctor be held liable for not rendering a service or facility? That does not make much sense. So for the title to make sense, the portion after this also has to be there. So actually it has to be that here without a comma. Can doctor be held liable for not rendering a service or facility that is not available in the hospital? So like that makes sense. So like this is wrong to use a comma and which here. Now all situations may not be clear cut like this. There will be some situations you may have to give some thought to which one to use. Basically, again that will depend, as I told you already, like the portion that coming after that or which, whether that is essential for the meaning, that part is important. So based on that you can decide. Again I am showing you here two alternative versions of one sentence. We hereby recommend some measures that may improve early detection of dementia. We hereby recommend some measures, which may improve early detection of dementia. So here, like which one would you choose? So here, like it will depend on what exactly is your focus. Whether your focus is on the fact that you are recommending some measures, or that you are trying to like propose some measures to improve early detection of dementia. So depending on that, suppose your focus is on measures, then the second version is okay. We hereby recommend some measures. So that is the focus. But there is some additional information. These measures are like about improving early detection of dementia. Or suppose your focus is on the other one, like your focus is that like you want to make the detection of dementia earlier, then you should be using the first option. So that is the difference here. So I think like most of the others would be going for the first meaning here, so that would be the correct option. But like if the meaning is what you are like what we discussed earlier, like the focus is on the measures, in that case only you can use the second option. Now moving on to the next pair of words, less and fewer. Again, people use these two terms very commonly in an interchangeable manner, but there is a difference here. Basically, less is about quantity. It's about like quantity in the sense that that is something you cannot count, while fewer is about things that you can count in numbers. Let us see some examples. Less weight. Weight is, you will not say one weight, two weight like that. So that is not something that you can count. So then you use the term less weight. Fewer sample size. People you commonly say less sample size and all. That is wrong because sample size is something you can count. Our sample size was 1, our sample size was 15, all these. So here the correct term is fewer sample size. Less importance. Again, the same thing. Importance is not something that you count. Fewer implications. I have 2 implications, 3 implications, 4 implications. So like here it is something that you can count. So again, it is fewer. So this is how you use these two terms. Since and for, again a very common mistake, like they especially people to when it is in the temporal sense, since and for, when people use that is often used wrongly. It is very simple to remember. Since is basically like after a specific point in time. Since Monday, since the year 1998, since morning, since 10 a.m. So you are like using one particular point in time as the reference point. On the other hand, for is not for a specific point of time, but it is for the duration. For past 10 minutes, for the past 15 years, for the past 3 days. So that is the very simple difference, but people usually confuse between. Well, let us see an example. This is from a published case report. The authors are saying that a 40-year-old lady presented to us with a mild to severe pain in the abdomen since 5 years. So what is your comment about this? 5 years is the duration, so it should not be since, it should have been for 5 years. Again, interestingly, for the correct way of using, from the same article you have an example in their title, they actually say for 5 years. So they got it correct there, but in the text they somehow got it wrong. Again, another, just now we discussed about the use of since. Another usual mistake, or rather like vague use of the word since is like when you are using it in the sense of because. Since I love you, in the sense that like because I love you. Though it is correct usage, there is like these two connotations are there for the word since. It has both this indication of time and also indication of causality. But when you use this word in a sentence, the reader may not be very sure which meaning you have in mind. So because of that, whenever you are implying causality, because of this thing happened, then you use because only, not since. Let me show you an example that I myself made up. Since the patient got admitted, he has lost weight. So what exactly is the meaning here? As we discussed, there are two possibilities. From the time of admission, the patient has lost weight. That may be what the author meant. But there is also another meaning. Because the patient got admitted, somehow maybe you are not feeding the person properly or something, the person has lost weight. So that is not what the author intended. So better, whichever meaning you have in mind, like use since or because appropriately. If it is about like the reason, and then you use because only, not since. Now moving on to the next kind of mistake, like people confuse between the singular and plural forms of various terms. We will discuss the most common ones. Participants were invited to rate each criteria on a 5-point Likert scale that required a ranking. So correctly they have used that here, no? Not which. That is one good point. But what they did wrong is like each criteria. Basically after each you have to use the singular format, but criteria is a plural. The correct word is criterion. Many people use these two terms very interchangeably, leading to like errors and confusion to the reader. Another one. It is about joint fractures are rarely seen as an isolated phenomena because, again they have used the because, not since. So again they have got it right there, but an isolated phenomena. Phenomena isolate, they are talking about a single thing, so they should have used the singular form, which is phenomenon, not phenomena. Again this error all of you should avoid. Autogenous tetanus, a sequelae of chronic ear infections. Again, they are talking about A. A means they are needed as singular, but sequelae is actually plural. The singular form is sequela. So again, this error also should be avoided. So here what they have is this one. There is a lacunae of clear consensus. Again, so lacunae is plural, lacuna is the singular. So we are talking about one lacuna like A. There is a lacuna. That is the correct format. Now different kind of errors. Now we are talking about confusing between like the singular and plural, interchanging between the two. Now this is a different kind of a mistake. The incidence and epidemiology of tuberculosis in Sistan region of Iran. an update to the past researches. So what they got wrong here is this researches. There are some words which are called uncountable nouns. The research is one of them. Like there is no plural. You use the singular format only for everything because it is supposed to be something that is not countable. So basically the person should have used like research, not research. Another one, new evidences on the altered gut microbiota in autism spectrum disorders. Evidence again is an uncountable noun. So basically this evidences is wrong. The person should have used new evidence. So this mistake also you people also kindly avoid. Now some common errors in spelling that appear in even published articles. So like when we are doing a research study, we get consent from the adults and we take assent from those who are minor, 18 years or less. But many others use the first option, the first version, accent, to like write assent. For example, say this one. Accent was obtained from participants between 15 to 18 years. So that is a wrong way of spelling it. It has to be the previous one, ASSENT. Even some people also the same mistake, make the same mistake about like assessed. When they are saying assessed, they actually write accessed, which again has an entirely different meaning. Socio-demographic pro forma. This is the correct spelling actually, like to refer to whatever data sheet on which you collect the patient's socio-demographic information. Many people write performa. Like when I did a Google search, you see 283 results are there for this performa thing, but even though many people have used it, that is wrong. It has to be pro forma. Another one, a premier institute. So the problem is this premier has a different meaning. That is about like the first release of a movie or a play and all. If you wanted to convey that this is a prominent major institute, you should have used the premier. This mistake is also very common. This study was done in a premier psychiatric institution in the country, but they use the premier with the E, which is wrong. Okay, another one. In this systematic literature review, we appraised the quality of available evidence. So basically what they want to tell you is that they assessed the quality of the available evidence, but for that the spelling of appraised is wrong. It is with an A, appraised, A-P-P-R-A. Like those of you know the word appraisal, like you will know. Those who are familiar with that word will know this correct spelling. Appraised actually means like the one that they used without the that actually means we informed. I appraised somebody about this particular matter. Thus that word and has an entirely different meaning. Okay, this actually means applying color to your cloth or your hair or whatever, but related to death also, that dying also people mistakenly use this particular spelling with the E, which is wrong. Constraints and constraints. Many a time people use this interchangeably, but it is wrong. Constraints is actually the verb, while constraints are the noun. Like constraints means you are restricting someone, you are preventing somebody from doing something. Well, constraints are whatever restrictions are applied, whatever prevention that you do. I will give you one example with obviously this one also I made up. Because of time constraints, the researcher constrains the subjects from going home on time. So time constraints, that is the noun. You have some constraints there. The researcher constrains. The researcher is doing something which is like this is a verb. The researcher is preventing the subjects from going home. So when we are at it, I would like to also point out one thing. These kind of examples, like I am actually trying to copy two of my favorite authors who write books on topics like this. One is Benjamin Dreyer, who wrote Dreyer's English, and the other one is Patricia O'Connor, who wrote this Woe is I. Both these books are very good. If any of you would like to know in detail about the kind of topics that we are discussing in this video, kindly get a hold of these books. They are available online, not very costly, but very useful. Very lot of like hilarious examples, very simple explanations, and all are there in both the books. In the coming videos, I will be introducing more and more books on various other topics also to you. Now moving on to another word. Life science is an enormous area that comprises of various allied and distinct fields. So I am drawing your attention to this one. Comprises of. Now let us see another title. Adult medulloblastoma comprises three major molecular variants. So they are saying comprises. So which one is correct? Comprises of or comprises? Again, people make a lot of mistakes here. So basically, it is the second one, comprises. Comprises of is wrong. So one easy way to remember this is like take it as equivalent to includes. Adult medulloblastoma includes three major variants. So that makes sense. Like that only, life science is an enormous area that includes various allied. You never says includes of, right? So similarly, comprises of is also wrong. Don't use that. Now another one. EEG artifacts in the ICU setting. Artifact detection in neonatal EEG. So it is about artifact. Here they have used I, while here they have used E. Which one is correct? Actually, both are correct. I did a lot of research on this one. Like both are correct in the sense that like there is some UK, US kind of variation, but in both the countries, both versions are used. Also, for the other meaning of the word artifact, like a thing of historical importance, a museum piece and all, there also both these spellings are correct. So this is not a wrong spelling. Both these authors have done it right only. Principal investigator. That is correct. That is the way it should be written, like a principal, the chief, the main investigator. But unfortunately, loads and loads of people write principal investigator. If you look at Google Scholar, there are more than 35,000 results for principal investigator. This term will be correct only if you are investigating some principle, which is usually not the case. So, like the previous one, the principal investigator version is the one that you should use. Now, some miscellaneous mistakes to close this discussion. So, this is the kind of usage we usually have in the discussion sections. Angulation was correlated to loss of function. In contrast to other reports, we could not find any relationship between so and so. So the authors say we could not find. That is not the very good way, because what it means is that relationship is already there. But we were not able to find that because maybe our sample size was not adequate or our methods were not good. We did not collect the data, the assessment properly. All these implications are there. But if you are like confident about your data, then what you should have told is we did not find. So that is the correct way of saying that. Could not, this mistake should not be made, because that is very common in even in published reports. Again, like this kind of terms, significant, they have a lot of connotations when it comes to the statistics. So you should not use it in the usual English meaning of that word. This finding is very significant for the specialty. That kind of things we should not use, because the readers may be confused. You may say important or things like that. Trend. Again, there was a trend towards things like that, because that may indicate like a statistical like a trend. So again, the words like this, which may be confused with words commonly used in statistics, like that kind of usage may be avoided. Many writers, even from modern medicine, use this word allopathy, but that is not the correct word. That term was proposed by people from homeopathy. So when you are talking about modern medicine, say modern medicine, not allopathy. Physician, this term is also like written in a wrong sense, written with a wrong meaning by many people, especially in the Indian context. Now, what the word physician means is somebody who has an MD in general medicine. But people usually use this word even to mean like doctors, any doctor in general. They use the word physician, which is wrong, and the wrong meaning may be conveyed to the reader, especially those from India. Methodology. Again, this term is very common in the method section of various research manuscripts, but like some authors say that methodology means study of methods. So basically, you should be just saying just methods, not methodology, because the meaning is slightly different. Similarly, symptomatology, especially in psychiatry, people use this very commonly. But again, symptomatology means study of symptoms. So better use symptoms. That's all. Finally, especially in the past some years, people have started mentioning their ORCID ID along with their published articles. We will discuss in some future video what exactly these things mean, what are the other options and all. But here I want to convey, I want to remind you only about the correct spelling. This is not the spelling; it is without that H, ORCID. And ideally, basically in the website of ORCID, they use for ID they use a small letter, but that is okay. Even if you write the capital letter, then that is not wrong. But you should not use this H like this. That is wrong. It is ORCID. So that's all from this presentation. Thanks to you all for this patient listening. So as and when I get time, I may add more videos on similar topics like on writing. Especially, I have some in the pipeline and on how to prepare proper punctuation, how to write your titles properly, etc., etc. And once we finish something about some slide presentations about writing part, we will even taken up publishing, submitting, selecting a journal, research methodology, statistics, all these things. So if like would like to get notified when I post future videos, please subscribe to this channel and share this link with all your students or friends or colleagues who you feel may benefit from this presentation. Thanks once again.